Is it recording now?
Should be.
Okay, it is. I'm
All
sorry.
right, guys, welcome to the Castillo del San Marco. This is only one of two still standing Spanish fortifications. Still standing Spanish fortifications on the continental United States. This is one, Castillo del San Marco. Do y'all happen to know where the second one is?
No, I do not.
No? Well, while you're here in St. Augustine, this might give y'all something to do for tomorrow. If you would take that little bridge right over there, it's called the Bridge of Lions. You take the Bridge of Lions 13 miles to the south, you'll actually reach Matanzas State Park. And in Matanzas State Park, they offer 100% free admission to the state park. They also offer 100% free ferry boat ride going across the Intercoastal Waterway to look at the second Spanish fortification. It's called Fort Matanzas, and that's 13 miles to the south, and that price for that is 100% free. That's right, we have both of these Spanish masonry buildings here in St. Johns County. Take advantage while you're here. All right. Now, with that being said, Fort Castillo del San Marco started construction in 1672, finished construction 1695. 23 years it took to build this fortification. The bottom of the walls are 16 feet thick. The upper parts of the walls are over 8 feet thick. You might notice if you take a walk through there, the dividing walls in between the rooms are up to 6 to 8 feet thick, separating those rooms. This military fortification has never been taken by military force, only treaty contract with the British. With that being said, it has been attacked over and over and over again, and this coquina rock was quarried from right over here at Anastasia Island. If you see where the lighthouse is there in the distance, this stone, this coquina rock, was quarried about a half a mile south of that lighthouse. It was brought here 440,000 blocks put in place to build this fortification. All right. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of happenings that take place in this fort, but I'm going to pull upon common sense on you guys. What would happen to you if you were enemy force attacking the Spaniards inside this fortification? If you were severely injured or laid down shot, what would happen to you?
You're probably gonna get buried.
This is right. Young man's right. What the Spaniards would do, they wait for nightfall to come about. They come outside. The only way in or out of this fort during that nightfall, they come outside that building. Right beside your body that was laying on the ground, whether you were dead or alive, they would dig a hole, roll you in it, and cover you up. Be back inside before morning light. So please take a quick look around this fort and notice the grass fields around it. This is the largest unmarked cemetery in all of St. Augustine. So if you guys choose to have a little picnic out here tomorrow, while putting down that little picnic blanket, if you sit down on something that's white stick-like, it goes crunch when you sit down on it, by all means, go ahead and push it back in. It's happened before. That's right, people have crunched down on them bones before. All right, now, if you'll notice, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of individuals a week walk on this lush green grass with very minimal sprinkler system to it. I will say this. Human. It is the best fertilizer, is it not? All right, now with that being said, that's the history. Let me give you some of the mystery here. Y'all happen to know of a Indian chief called Chief Osceola from the Second Seminole Wars? Have y'all ever heard of him?
Heard of them, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chief Osceola happened to be in winter, December of 1836. Chief Osceola and nearly 300 of his Seminole Indians were taken under a white flag treaty and brought here to this fortification. They were locked away in prison here. We had over 100 of these native Indians locked in each of the rooms. There were 3 rooms, and in these 3 rooms they did not have running showers. They did not have running
We've seen
commodes.
one of the rooms.
Sir?
I think we've seen one of the rooms.
Oh, they're not hard to find.
No,
They actually have them labeled up a little bit.
Yeah, no showers, no nothing.
But they actually gave those individuals a bucket to do their business in. They kept them prisoner here for well over 3 months and never gave them a shower. basically starving these individuals too. With Chief Osceola here, they gave him free reign of walk. In other words, he was guided, escorted around this fort, but he was never truly locked up all the time in one room. Chief Osceola happened to catch that swamp bug fever. I keep talking about this yellow fever epidemic, right? Well, St. Augustine is famous for it. Caught that malaria. They call it swamp bug fever. Chief Osceola said they got a local doctor. The local's doctor here in town did not want to treat Chief Osceola. So they had to get a different doctor here in town. This doctor came out, and he was a very special doctor. He was very experienced in the art of chronology. Any of y'all know what that is?
Killing people.
No, chronology is the study of the bumps on a human's head to decide their characteristics.
Okay.
Talk about a false doctrine, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to look at somebody and tell that their bumps are going to tell you how their characteristic is. Well, with that being said, that doctor's name was Dr. Wheaton. Dr. Wheaton became very good friends with Chief Osceola, attending to his every need, learning him a little bit more English, as Dr. Wheaton was learning a little bit more Seminole. With that being said, they became very good friends the time that they were here. But Dr. Wheaton told the commander, "This man is real sick. He's about to die. You don't want an uprising here in this town. Let's ship him out." And that's what they did. The U.S. Army that happened to own this place at that time shipped out Chief Osceola and all 300 surviving Seminole Indians up to South Carolina, just outside of Charleston. There used to be a fort called Fort Moultrie. And this is where Dr. Wheaton took Chief Osceola with these other Indians to spend out their final days. A couple weeks after arriving there, Chief Osceola ended up passing away from this malaria. Not until Dr. Wheaton actually made a death mask of this man. Fearing that he did not have too long to go, he convinced Chief Osceola to let him make this death mask so they could recreate his physical features with clay or whatnot. With that being said, Dr. Wheaton was led into the room. Right after Chief Osceola passed away, 2 guards at the door. Dr. Wheaton went in with his medical bag to give the last rites for this Chief Osceola. Dr. Wheaton was in that room for about 20 minutes giving Chief Osceola his last rites as he left the room, telling these U.S. troops, "Hey, I nailed down the coffin lid. You can put him in the ground now. He's good to go." And Dr. Wheaton left from South Carolina, came back to St. Augustine. But these U.S. Army troops, when they were taking his casket out to put it in the ground, the man holding the head section ended up dropping it. The man holding the foot section ended up still holding it. They said, quote unquote, that once that casket hit the ground, the head section of it, something inside slid and went thump inside, like something was missing measurements. Well, with that being said, nobody ever opened up this casket to see what measurements were missing. I'm going to lead y'all in, fill y'all in to what kind of measurements were missing. For the mere fact that when Dr. Wheaton came back from South Carolina back to his office here in town, he displayed right on his desktop in a pickling jar something rather disturbing. It happened to look exactly identical to the severed head of Chief Osceola just floating around in a pickling jar. Now, urban legend has it that whenever Dr. Wheaton would find out from his wife that his kids were misbehaving, guess what would happen to them? He would come home from work, Dr. Wheaton would. He would come home from work, go right into those kids' rooms, take that pickling jar with Chief Osceola's head, he'd put it down on that end table, to take a lantern and illuminate that jar. With that jar being illuminated with that head of Chief Osceola right there for his 6-year-old daughter and 8-year-old son to look upon on the days where they were doing bad. Let's just say it went down as legend that he had the most well-behaved children here in town. For they really loved that head of Chief Osceola in that jar as they were trying to get a peaceful night's sleep. With that being said, that head stayed in that family all the way up till his daughter turned 19. And guess what her father, Dr. Wheaton, gave his daughter as a wedding gift? That's right, the severed head in a pickle jar of Chief Osceola. That managed to survive all the way to the end of her honeymoon, where she donated this severed head to a little branching of the Smithsonian Institute. Conveniently, that building happened to be made out of wood, and conveniently it took less than 2 weeks for that building to burn right down to the ground. The head was never found there, but continuing on with that urban legend, it's still floating around here in town. So be careful what you might pick up at a garage. Now, Chief Osceola himself, he haunts this building where he's been photographed over and over and over again, looking through this porch where the guns were. He's been filmed and photographed right here at the gate entrance of this fort, along with a bunch of other troops in the area. But as long as this fort shall stand, Chief Osceola shall still roam these halls. With that being said, guys, come along with me.